Now in reality, as far as agriculture and farmers are concerned, the European deal is not at all fair and inclusive. In Belgium, make it even worse and harder for farmers and hold agriculture responsible for the majority of nitrogen emissions, mainly ammonia. Completely unjustified because it's based on incorrect data and outdated models with margins of error of 50% or more. Carbon and nitrogen emissions from agriculture can actually be considered as green emissions and are cycles that existed basically forever. Agriculture is also part of nature. Agriculture is nature. The policymakers forget that agriculture not only produces carbon or nitrogen, but also captures and fixates large amounts of carbon and nitrogen and hereby also produce oxygen. Without carbon or nitrogen, plants do not grow and no protein is produced. Without proteins, life cannot exist. Some agricultural crops capture more carbon and nitrogen compared to forests. Moreover, agriculture provides nutrition. Industry and traffic do not capture carbon or nitrogen, nor do they convert it into food. European food is known for its safety, nutritiousness and high quality. Continuing to feed a rapidly growing world population with current production patterns remains a major challenge. The farm to fork approach in the Green Deal aims to ensure the development of a fair, healthy and environmentally friendly food system. In Europe, and especially in the north of Europe, agriculture is extremely efficient and sustainable compared to many other regions in the world. If we express the amount of carbon emissions or nitrogen per kilogram of food produced, we are basically simply the best to the rest compared to the rest of Europe. The current policy aims to preserve small-scale agriculture and discourage large-scale agriculture, which is actually more efficient and sustainable and also ensures that food remains affordable for everyone. With a growing world population, food production must at least double by 2050, both plant production as well as animal production. Policymakers tend to forget that 1 kilogram of plant-based food for humans results in approximately 3 to 5 kilograms of vegetable waste products that are not suitable for human consumption, but which can be converted by animals into nutritional, valuable meat and dairy products. Humans are omnivores, therefore humans need both plant and animal products. European Green Deal states that food production continues to lead to air, water and soil contamination and contributes to biodiversity loss and climate challenge, while a significant part of food is wasted. The Green Deal currently aims for a higher level of ambition to further reduce the use of chemical pesticides, the use of fertilizer and antibiotics. The biodiversity strategy looks at measures that would help member states to improve degraded ecosystems, including carbon-rich ecosystems, and restore them to good ecological status. For example, Europe is looking at forests to promote carbon absorption. All of this must be also critically reviewed, and other aspects also must be taken into consideration. The use of herbicides, pesticides and crop protection products has already been significantly reduced. However, minimal use is still necessary to achieve good yields and to prevent food waste. Failing harvest because of plant infections or insects endanger the food supply. Fungal infections on crops, for example, can also be very hazardous for public health. Biodiversity is constantly changing and evolving throughout history. Scientific studies have shown that it's by no means certain that if all agriculture would disappear, the biodiversity of the past would recover and certain plants or animal species would return. Other factors such as traffic, industry or climate change also have a major impact or even a greater impact on biodiversity and nature. According to Europe, the Green Deal and transition can only succeed if it's fair and inclusive. The Green Deal and the Common Agricultural Policy would continue to be the important tool to ensure a decent standard living for farmers and their families. The most vulnerable are the most exposed to the harmful effects of climate change and environmental degradation. The Commission also invites stakeholders to simplify legislation and identify problem cases. Now, in reality, as far as agriculture and farmers are concerned, the European deal is not at all fair and inclusive. In recent decades, the costs for farmers have risen considerably, but the price the farmer receives for his products has not increased accordingly. The distribution of value in the agri-food chain is mainly situated further along the chain, namely at the level of the processing industry and even more so at retail level. Only a limited part of the value goes to the farmer. Legislation is also becoming more and more strict, and regulations continue to increase for farmers. The absolute champion in this respect is Flanders in Belgium, where it takes on downright Kafkaesque proportions. Europe blames agriculture and farmers for being a major cause of climate change, but farmers are much more likely to be the victims of climate change, which also threatens food supplies. Either it's far too hot, far too dry, or it's too wet, as we had the last couple of weeks here in Belgium. Europe also sees itself as a global leader with the Green Deal and will work with all partners internationally to increase climate resilience and environmental resilience to prevent these challenges from becoming a source of conflict, food insecurity, displacement and forced migration. The demand for food will only continue to increase in the future, while climate change will reduce the areas that are still suitable for agriculture. Increasing international conflicts also pose a threat on the world's food supply. The Food and Drug Administration of the United Nations published a study at the end of 2023 that states that in order to be able to feed the world's population in the future, areas such as Northern Europe must significantly increase agricultural production. This is much better than cutting down rainforests or expanding agricultural activities in areas where it is much less efficient or sustainable. Europe must therefore assume its international responsibility for food security in the future. The European Union claims that it's inclusive and that everyone should be included in this story. But for the time being, this does not count for the farmers. So this needs to change urgently. After all, farmers are more likely to be the victims of climate change than to be the cause of it. Increasing regulations and costs must be drastically reduced, and the distribution of value in the agri-food chain must be urgently reviewed so that the farmers receive a fairer and more correct price for their efforts and products. Finally, Europe must strive for an equal, a level playing field for all players, whether international, national or even regional. It's absolutely unacceptable for a region such as Flanders in Belgium to impose additional and stricter rules on its farmers and then unjustified hide behind Europe. Europe should therefore urgently review its Green Deal strategies and ensure that there is more reasonableness and realism with regards to agriculture. The need for an agricultural recovery plan is growing and the time is running out. So policymakers, important message, take up your responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you, Benedikt. Thank you, Benedikt Sas. From the Gand University, thank you, Professor.